everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. It is episode number 88. And as always, I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. How are you feeling tonight, my man?
Am I a bit overdressed for this podcast? I feel like we were
You look very
celebrating the
dapper.
points. Thank you. I felt like we were celebrating the points record and all the victories that Inter Miami had this season, the great moments. So I thought I'd dress up a little bit nicer than I normally do. So I'm glad you appreciate it, and I'm very happy to be here. How are you?
I'm feeling good, man. A lot has been happening for it to be an off-season week. And we're not going to talk about any of it tonight because we have a special episode planned. And that is the 10 moments that helped Inter Miami break the points record, the most important moments of the season in the MLS. So no Leagues Cup, no CONCACAF Champions Cup games. But as far as Inter Miami's path to breaking the points record, these are what we thought were the 10 most important moments of the season. I am very excited about this because it's a chance to relive the best moments of 2024. And I think that's really fun. But we've been talking about this episode for a couple weeks. The last couple days, we finalized our list. How are you feeling about this? Are you excited for this, or are you just ready to re-experience everything?
Yeah, I'm ready to re-experience everything, but also it feels like there's a bittersweet feeling about this season, right? We won some things, set some records straight, and then we lost a couple of things. So it'll be nice to think about the positives of this season because we often forget the positivity among the negative side of football. So I'm glad that we're going to relive some of these moments, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, me too. And this one's going to be positive and fun, I think.
Exactly.
So without further delay, let's just get right into it. Number 10 in the 10th most important moment for Inter Miami to break the points record. Let's get the clip.
Matias Rojas, of course, scored 2 on his home debut. The effort towards goal is absolutely sublime.
So this is Matias Rojas's very, very long free kick. It came at CF Montreal on May 11th. It was a game that Inter Miami ultimately wins 3-2, but they had gone down 2-0 early in that game. And right before the half, Matias Rojas, with Lionel Messi on the sideline because of the 2-minute rule, hits the farthest free kick probably in Inter Miami history and puts Inter Miami back on the scoreboard. Luis Suarez scores a couple minutes later. They're tied at half, and then there's no doubt they're going to win the game in the second half. Those 3 points obviously proved crucial for Inter Miami to ultimately win the MLS Supporter Shield and break the points record. And so a fun moment, an incredible moment. And I think it was one of 2 moments that helped Matias Rojas announce himself to Inter Miami fans and to this team. Incredible, really.
I still remember I was sitting on my couch. We were 2-0 down. I was like, okay, here we are again. Inter Miami just doing Inter Miami things, losing to a team that we should be winning against. And then that free kick happened, and Lionel Messi's on the sidelines, and you're like, this is the worst possible time for him to be on the injury line because he could potentially take this. And I was like, okay, this opportunity is gone. And then Matias Rojas lined up. I had no expectations, and my reaction was my jaw dropped, like literally dropped. And I was absolutely awestruck. Such a sweetly struck free kick as well. Absolutely no chance the goalkeeper saving that from way out. These are the kind of goals that you really enjoy seeing as football fans. And most importantly, I thought before this, we were just a little bit slow, didn't look that great in the game. And this just gave us that uplift that we needed. And I still remember Lionel Messi himself was a little bit shocked that I went in and was like, oh, okay, there's somebody else who can do something similar to what I can do. Very important for us to get back into this game and eventually go on and win this. Brilliantly done by Matias Rojas. And if he doesn't come back, I think we're going to have enough highlights to remember him by. So great memory.
Certainly. And this is not the last time we're going to hear from him tonight. We broke the record by 1 point. So every single point helped us break the record this season. I thought this game we were losing 2-0. It felt like one of those games where in the aftermath, we would have just thrown our hands up and said, it's really hard to play on the road in the MLS, to go on the road to Canada, a fairly decent road trip. Especially coming off a big week the week before against the Red Bulls, a midweek game coming up against Orlando City. So to go on the road and go down early 2-0, look discombobulated in the midfield, not look that sharp defensively, give up a couple early goals. that moment, I thought, reignited Inter Miami in this game, which helped them ultimately tie it and then win the game in the second half. And so for me, this was the turning point in a game that got us 3 points. And so for me, the number 10 spot for best moment of the season, I think it definitely belonged, especially because of how beautiful of a goal it really was, right? Like we haven't even talked about that.
Exactly. It was a beautiful goal, something that, would be goal of the season contender. And I also think there was something special about a non-Messi or a non-Suarez bringing us back into the game. Nobody expected it to go in. That was the biggest thing about this. And yes, we all know Matías Rojas has a great left foot on him, but to actually do it and from that distance is phenomenal. So thank you for that free kick and that memory, Matías Rojas.
Yeah, and this is when he became the silky smooth lefty with the sweet left foot. Just an incredible goal. Best free kick we've seen, even though Lionel Messi has had some very clutch free kicks. This was, I think, the most impressive, at least the farthest distance. So important 3 points to pick up there. And I think that leads us into number 9.
Matías Rojas centrally shoots and fires and scores. How's that for an introduction to the match? Matías Rojas to level the game at 1.
This game was the match before, and it was the first time we got to see Matías Rojas in a real role. He made his debut the game before that in the last 10 minutes or so against New England. But this was his first opportunity to get major minutes. He comes on to start the second half. We're down 1-0 against the Red Bulls. This is a team, if you remember, 2 months earlier, we got blown out by at Red Bull Arena. And now we have a chance at home to get some revenge. We go down 1-0 early at halftime. We're looking at each other. We're texting each other. Maybe the Red Bulls are our kryptonite. And then Matías Rojas comes into the game, blasts that shot, ties the game 1-1. And then ultimately Messi and Suarez take over. Messi ultimately has 6 goal contributions in that game. Inter Miami wins 6-2. But as far as us proving we can beat a good team, I thought this was really important. Us not fearing the New York Red Bulls, I thought that was really important. And I think us being able to defend our home turf was also really important. I'll also add, and I'll get into this a little bit more, but we're recently coming off the Monterrey loss and the exit from the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And so we were just starting to build momentum. And this game I thought was a huge prove it moment, because it was the first quality team we played in that next stretch that showed us we're actually a good team. We're not just beating up on the worst teams in the league.
What was the final score of this game?
6-2, and I thought there was a chance it was going to be 7.
It's really interesting how certain moments really stand out. But if you look back over the course of the season, this might be one of those moments where you're like, okay, this is where Inter Miami had that spark ignited under them, because up until then, we were constantly trying to live up to the expectations that everyone had for us. We lost 4-0 against Red Bull already. We were down 2-0 at halftime. Tata Martino makes that change, which is big credit to him for making that quick change and bringing Matías Rojas on in the 45th minute. And what does he do within the first 2 minutes of being on that pitch? Absolute screamer. That ball floated so much. I thought it was going to go wide. And it just felt like it hung in the air for about 30 seconds before it went in. But it was beautifully struck. And he's truly become that, as you mentioned, the silky left winger with a sweet left foot, right? He truly became that over the course of the season. And this was the first introduction that we had of Matías Rojas and what he can do for us. And absolutely fantastic. Again, great way to spark the energy in the team and bring them forward. And we went on to score 5 more goals after that. So he must have done something right.
Yeah, and he also, I think, got the assist on the next goal. He earns a steal. And I think he pushes it forward to Suarez, who then taps it over to Messi. So he gets sort of the hockey assist, but he starts the next goal. And I think that was the first moment we saw it. There's this incredible chemistry between Messi and Matías Rojas. It ignited in that game for 6 goals, and they ultimately get 3 points. But it was a special second half for us. And I think it showed us, again, this team is not just capable of beating good teams, but crushing them, taking good teams and blowing them out of the water, especially at home. It gave us a lot of confidence to move forward into the season and think, okay, again, we lost this game against Monterrey. We lost the CONCACAF Champions Cup, but we can just turn around and ignite ourselves moving forward and go on and still do something special like break the MLS points record.
And it's not just the goal. I think the goal itself is very, very special. Anytime a goal scorer has a goal from outside the box, it has to take something special. But I think the context that you mentioned is a lot more important, because if Red Bull managed to get the double on us, because this game was threatening to be another 4-0 defeat. And if that happened, that would be really bad for morale. There would be a lot of questions about this Inter Miami team coming off of a loss against Monterrey in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, where you're basically touted to be one of the finalists. And then you go on to lose twice to Red Bull, once at home as well. That's a big mental setback. And I'm just really glad that this game turned out the way it did. And we were actually able to get a 4-goal victory over New York Red Bulls, who up until that time were proving to be a really good team. Their season sort of went downhill over the next... Their season went downhill over the regular season and then picked up again in the playoffs. But it felt like New York Red Bulls was really big in terms of challenging for that MLS supporter shield. So I'm really glad we got that 6-2 victory over them.
Yeah, the Red Bulls, ultimately the Eastern Conference champions, like you said, they were in that top tier in the East at that time. But I'll also add, it had been 2 months since we had beaten a team that would ultimately make the playoffs. And that was going all the way back to that Orlando City 5-0 game. So it was a long time between really quality performances where Inter Miami could feel good about themselves. So huge goal, turned that game around, and I think gave a very positive sense that some of these new players we brought in, including Matias Rojas, who had just arrived, were going to be impactful players. All right, number 8.
Ruiz and Messi. Messi!
This is the Inter Miami 3-2 victory against Sporting Kansas City. That game came on April 13th. It was the first game after we had lost to Monterrey. We lost in the midweek in Mexico, and then we had to travel to Kansas City to go play a road game against a team that has a couple solid players. It was in Arrowhead, so it was a huge event for that team. We go down early. I think it was Nico Frede or maybe Chelo Wigan who had an early mistake that led to a goal. We were giving up sort of goals in the first 5 minutes of the games consistently. But in the second half, Messi, with what I think was his best goal of the season, at least in terms of difficulty, goes up and over the keeper and has it drop in between the nets, in between the posts, and gives Inter Miami a 2-1 lead. They ultimately go on to win that game 3-2. We thought about putting the Diego Gomez steal and then drop off to Luis Suarez, which is from that same game. But I felt this goal was more impressive, and also it was the culmination of our comeback. We go down 1-0, we equalize, but this was the one that put us ahead and made us think, okay, we're going to win this game. No doubt about it. And as far as Messi special moments in terms of goal scoring, this was, I think, the best of the year.
Very similar to that Matias Rojas goal as well. Similar position, similar range, and similar result, right? You give Messi that much space in that area, and he's going to absolutely hammer that in the back of the net. How bad is it that I don't really remember much of this game other than the fact that we won and other than the fact that Messi scored an absolute screamer? We had a fair few comeback wins this season, right? We won, 31 points from a losing position, which is a lot of points. But I think a lot of these moments are down to Messi magic and us having that special player on that pitch. We saw the 2 goals by Matias Rojas, both individually brilliant. This was, again, one absolutely individual brilliant moment from Lionel Messi. And you say very impressive, but I say this is his bread and butter, right? He does this day in, day out, game in, game out. And he produced this at a time when we needed it once again. We were down 1-0. We got back into the game. And then you can almost sometimes, as a team, just get a little bit complacent about getting that next goal. And sometimes you try as hard as you want and you just don't get that second goal. Thankfully, we have a player like Lionel Messi who can score that absolute bangers from outside the box. And what a goal to cap off a lovely victory.
Yeah, lovely goal, comeback victory, but also that point in the season. And listen, all 3 of these goals so far have come from that same portion of the season. But we were at our lowest point of the first half of the season, right after that Monterrey loss, which was, in my opinion, uncompetitive. Tata Martino did not make any substitutes in Monterrey. It felt like this team was stuck between the 3-5-2. That was awful. We weren't sure what our right back situation was like. Our offense was okay. Messi had missed a couple games and finally came back the midweek or the week before against Colorado. So getting him reintegrated. It was a very low point. The title of our next show was Soul Searching. And the team then went on the road, got a victory against an MLS team in the Western Conference on the road. Very difficult things to do. And then they went on to win 7 out of the next 8. They won 5 straight games from that point. So to me, this was a turning point. If they lose that game because they're still thinking about what happened in Monterrey, coaches are in the hot seat. Players are getting benched. It is a real turn and look inwards to see what we're made of this season. And instead, they go on the road. They get that win at Sporting Kansas City, led by Lionel Messi, led by Diego Gomez, and get 3 points. And it kickstarts their season. Like I said, 5 straight wins after that, 7 out of 8. And from that point on, they were the team to beat in the MLS for the Supporters Shield.
Was this Rojas' first game for us as well?
No, Rojas hadn't come yet.
Okay. No, but yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of the context of this game. And again, I would almost say that period, those 7 games that we won on the trot, might have been the best moments that we had this season.
I agree.
Maybe you take away Messi when he was away for international duty and then got injured. Maybe that period, but I think that's special for a different reason. This was when we as a team started to show character and started to show quality. And that's why a lot of these games feature, at least in the lower half of our list. It was important to develop this confidence. And all of these games were confidence-building games. All of these goals were confidence-building goals. And it started to show us that this team has a mentality that they can actually carry on even when they're down and out, or even when people think they're down and out. And that, I think, proved more important over the rest of the season than you would have given credit for at that point in time. I think that mentality that started off in these games was very important for what we achieved over the course of the season, right?
I 100% agree. And one of the cool things about this episode is we're going to go to a lot of different points in the season. That, I think, wraps up this portion. But we kept going to it because, like you said, it was this resilient moment that Inter Miami proved we're not going to go away. We're not just big names. We're going to be a real team that does real things. And so that was really cool to see. And I think this game and that goal really kicked that off. Okay, number 7. Let's go to a different portion of the season.
Why? For Copa America. Julian Gressel and the finish in front. Inter Miami with a 1-0 lead, and welcome back to Major League Soccer, Ian Frey.
Ian Frey's return from injury. He gets the opening goal in a June 19th MLS home game against the Columbus Crew. Inter Miami goes on to win that game 2-1, but Ian Frey was the story. It was his first game back from injury. He was electric, dynamic, scores in the first 10 minutes, and Inter Miami, without Lionel Messi, without Luis Suarez, goes on to beat the Columbus Crew, who are the reigning MLS Cup champions. They made it to the final of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They are considered one of the most dangerous teams in the league. And Inter Miami hosted them without Messi, without Suarez, without Rojas, and said, we got this kid Ian Frey. Let's see what he can do. He puts the ball in the back of the net on his return. Inter Miami goes on to win that game 2-1. And it was, I think, from a personal perspective, one of the most fun moments of the season.
There's so much happening in that clip, and we can talk about this clip for the rest of the episode. We're 9 minutes in. We're at home against Columbus. Nobody has given us any chance. We're thinking in the pregame episode that as long as we can defend and as long as we can sit back and catch them on the counter, we may have a chance. And then what do? We score off a corner. How many times has Inter Miami scored off a corner this season? That's something that we should look into. But every time Ian Frey was on the pitch, we threatened to score from a corner. He's coming back from a year-long injury. He's played 10 minutes of professional football. And the first thing he does is put the ball in the back of the net. That's not even his job. Absolutely brilliant. I think as Inter Miami fans, as long-standing Inter Miami fans who've seen Ian Frey grow into this player that he's become today, this was a very wholesome moment, a very warm moment for us. And it just felt like the stars were aligning, right? You're against your biggest opponent. You're playing a young team without Messi, without Suarez. the cards are stacked against you, and yet you start the scoring and go on to win this game. I think we would have been a little bit less convinced about putting this moment on the list if we not won that game. But the fact that we won without Messi and we won with a Frey header, it was so wholesome, and I absolutely loved this. Probably one of my favorite moments on the list.
Yeah, and to add further context, Inter Miami, we know that Messi and Suarez. Well, we knew that Messi was going to leave for the Copa America. We knew we were going to go 6 weeks without him, and that all started in the game before this against Philadelphia. But this was the first game against a real opponent. We knew Columbus was good. There was no doubt about that. So to host them, get that early goal, build your confidence, get a second goal, get out of there with a 2-1 victory. Huge for this team's confidence to play without Messi and Suarez, who had been clearly the leaders of this team in the first half of the season. So for Julian Gressel, for Ian Frey, and for that whole lineup, really, it was an incredible moment. And then obviously when you add in Ian Frey coming back from injury, being one of the fan favorites for this club, getting that special moment right away was incredible. I don't, like I said, I don't have much more great things to say because it was just one of the best moments of the year.
Absolutely.
Okay, number 6.
Jordi Alba back to Messi. Jordi Alba cuts it across. Messi!
This is one of the earliest games of the season. Game 2, February 25th, at the LA Galaxy, who end up being the MLS Cup champions. We said at the time that it was good that we got them early. They really controlled that game, but we broke through at the end. We get the 1-1 draw on the road, and that 1 point, even though it came at the beginning of the season and it may have felt inconsequential, is ultimately what was the difference between us, the 2021 New England Revolution. That was the points record right there in that one moment, and it happened because Lionel Messi and Jordi Alba are special and have a special connection.
This was start of the season, as you said, at a time when we didn't have Yannick Bright preventing the defensive transitions. This was a team that we had heavily researched, and I don't want to take credit for this, but I think you and I did point out that they would compete for the MLS Cup. We pointed out Paintso, Ricky Puig, everybody knows. Joveljic, their striker at the time, was not in good form, and we were thinking to ourselves that this is a team that's coming together, and if we play them maybe 10 games later, it would be a completely different conversation. And playing them early is a good thing because we won't play them again for the rest of the season, and we may be able to take off points against them away from home. And that's exactly what happened. They dominated a lot of that game. They have powerful runners. They had Peck and Paintso running down the wings, Puig dictating the number 10. They were dominant for a lot of the game, as I already said. And I think this was the game where our transition game was exploited a little bit, and we saw that this Inter Miami team has some holes and could have easily been the first loss of the season. But in step Jordi Alba and Lionel Messi, and that goal is an absolute textbook Jordi Alba Messi connection. Nothing more you can ask for. 89th minute, I believe, last minute of the game, you score, get that point off, basically a gut punch to LA Galaxy. They didn't necessarily come back in extra time to add any threat to us, and I'm just glad we took that 1 point. In grand scheme of things, it was a very difficult game to watch, difficult game to experience as players as well. It was a tough opponent, but getting that 1 point proved to be very, very crucial. And I think draws became more important to as the end of the season as the season progressed. So glad we were able to beat the eventual champions or draw against the eventual champions.
Yeah, and just to add further context, the Luis Suarez experiment hadn't been going so well. He did not look good in preseason. After this game, we talked about maybe we should look at Leo Campana being the starter and Suarez coming off the bench. It wasn't until that next week against Orlando City that Suarez sort of exploded. So we weren't exactly sure where our offense was coming from if it wasn't for Messi. Busquets was getting overrun in the midfield because he was that lone DM6 that just couldn't keep up with the Pecks and the Paintsels and the Puigs of the world, the Puiges of the world. And so we did look very discombobulated. I don't think Nico Frede was even available for this game because he had a couple hamstring injuries early. So I believe it was Aviles and Kristoff with Busquets protecting them. Very slow going the other way. And it wasn't clear where the offense was going to come from. Ultimately, we get that late goal from Lionel Messi to salvage a draw. And we come back thinking, okay, that's a good result. We're going to be proud of that. And ultimately we were. And it ultimately was the difference between us breaking the points record and not. So great moment. Messi being Messi. We thought, at least I thought at that moment, okay, we're going to get something special from Messi this year. Obviously, he missed more games than we would have wanted to, but in terms of what he was going to give us on the field, it was MVP performance, right? And this is one of those highlights of his MVP package, is getting a point on the road at the eventual MLS Cup champions.
Absolutely.
Okay, number 5, and here we get into the game winners. Those goals, earned points, were helpful in turning games around, helpful in building momentum, but there was 5 game winners for Inter Miami this year, and we'll start with clearly the least impressive, but all of them count and all of them are meaningful. Let's go to number 5.
A little bit of space here for Gressel. Tries to play that through Kramaski! He's got the final touch! And Inter Miami are ahead late on!
So this game, July 3rd, it's at Charlotte. It is our 4th game without Messi and Suarez during the Copa America. We had gone on a 3-game winning streak and proven, I think at this point, including that win against Columbus, that we could compete without Messi and Suarez. We were a real team. Julian Gressel was stepping up. Campana was doing his thing. Robert Taylor was playing a big role. And ultimately, this game on the road against a very good defense, incredible defense, really. I think they were the second best defense in the league this year. Inter Miami finds a way. Julian Gressel from that right wing in transition, making those hard runs was Benjamin Kramaski, and he gets rewarded for it. The ball comes in. He gets the sliding tap, and Inter Miami gets a 2-1 win in a game that Charlotte absolutely felt like they should have won. Inter Miami escapes with 3 points, and that helps us break the points record.
Charlotte, Ajman, dominating us, bullying us this game. First time we saw an actual pure striker getting the better of our defenders. And I almost felt like this was a game that it's going to get away from us because their defense was very solid. And then they had a striker up top who is really giving us a hard time. And then, first of all, of course, Kramaski does what he does best. Late run into the box, finds that space in between the Charlotte defenders and gets at the end of a cross and puts it in the back of the net. This is where Kramaski shines. This is what he does best. That number 8 role where he can run into the box late and create himself some space to score. But this goal truly belongs to Julian Gressel. That ball is inch perfect. 1 meter away and it would have missed Kramaski. A little faster and it would have gone past him. It was beautifully weighted. The fact that he didn't even lift it, he put it along the ground, just made it so much easier for Kramaski to put it in the back of the net. Very difficult game, but this was one where I was like, oh, I'm glad these boys have now started winning without Messi and have started learning how to come back when we need to actually score a goal. And we found a way, man. We started finding a way. Even when the opposition was better than us, we found the result. We found that goal. And it was a great combination between Kramaski and Julian Gressel. And I think this was one of the better goals during that, one of the most underrated goals during that chunk of time when we were without Messi.
Yeah, and again, we talked about it with the Columbus Crew goal again with Ian Frey. Inter Miami's last 2 games with Messi were not resounding victories. We lost against Atlanta at home. Then we had a draw where we had a late comeback against St. Louis City. We got outplayed in back-to-back games at home. And then Messi and Suarez leaves. And so it's almost like, what is this team going to be? And all they do is rattle off 4 straight victories, including this one. Julian Gressel, that was his best part of the season. And like you said a few minutes ago, this, I think, was the most fun and endearing moment or period of the season because it was this team coming together as a team, guys that weren't supposed to be stars stepping up and having a huge impact and winning games for us. Julian Gressel, Benjamin Kramaski, Ian Frey. We'll get to another one soon in this list. But ultimately, this team came together in these types of moments to win games they really didn't have any business winning, and it was incredibly fun to see. And I loved every second of it, honestly. And happy for Kramaski too, who's didn't score a lot this year, but he had a very important one.
And Charlotte is an underrated team, man. They're a solid team that can get a result against any good team in the MLS. So it's not just that you're scoring against this team, you're winning without your best players. And that's what I think defined our season. As much as I want to give Messi and Suarez credit for doing what they do best, they're superstar players. They will always perform. But to perform when you don't have those players available against some really good teams and getting results and scoring good goals, this was a really good goal, a well-constructed team goal. I think that's the mark of true eventual MLS Supporter Shield winners. I wanted to say champions, but we're not champions. So, oh well.
Yeah, and another fun part or fun aspect to this game, not related to the goal, but we were getting sort of outmatched by Patrick Ajimong in the first half. At halftime, Tata takes out, I believe it was Sergei Christoph, moves Busquets to the back line and puts in Yannick Bright. This is when I felt Tata Martino said, I have to have Yannick Bright in the midfield. This is the beginning of when we really saw Sergio Busquets playing in that back line consistently. So this game, that second half adjustment from not getting the job done to winning the game on the road, a tough game against a tough team, that felt like a turning point for Tata's how he felt about this team, who he felt were his best players, who he felt he needed to line up where in order to have this team win a ton of games. That felt like a turning point. And so this was a hugely important game for getting those 3 points. Without them, we wouldn't have done what we did, but also figuring out what this team was, what it was made of. Part of that's Yannick Bright and Busquets. Part of it's Julian Gressel and Benjamin Kramaski. Great moment all the way around. Couldn't say anything more about it.
What's number 4?
Number 4.
Will there be a late hero? Campana, who's just come on. Flag stays down. Shot fires. No! Off the crossbar and in. How's that for an entrance? Leo Campana.
94th minute on May 18th at home against DC United. Leo Campana comes on to help salvage the game. His first touch picks the ball down. Second touch, fires it past the keeper. Inter Miami escapes DC United 1-0, who had been playing in a low block, very tight, very low all game. Inter Miami could do nothing with it until they brought on the magic man, Campapi, and he puts in a magic goal to give Inter Miami a 1-0 victory and all 3 points.
Do you want to know a fun fact?
Yeah, always.
I missed this goal live. I was so frustrated with this game. I switched off my TV, and as soon as I realized they'd scored, I absolutely kicked myself because what a goal. What an absolute goal. Not just the fact that he scored a screamer outside the box, volley. It was the first touch of the game for Leo Campana.
Yeah.
And he did that multiple times this season. I'm sure we're going to see it, maybe. No spoiler alerts. That was beautiful, man. The 2 games we played against DC United were complete contradictions of one another. The first time that we played against them was basically a basketball game where everything goofy was happening. People were just running through the midfield. I remember Redondo had the most space he's ever had for Inter Miami in any game. Yeah. Just carried the ball through, and Luis Suarez just scoring some really goofy goals. And the second game was the most frustrating game I've probably watched this season, where they didn't give us an inch. Credit to them. They figured out how they wanted to play against us. They sat back in a low block, defended their butts off, and frustrated us up until the very last minute where Leo Campana said, you know what, everybody hold my boots. I'm going to score, and then hold my shirt because I'm deserving of celebrating in the way I want to.
Carry me off with my shirt off. Let's do it.
Brilliant. It's also a statement to come on in the first second with your first touch, score a goal, and then basically walk off the pitch, right? Because that ended the game. So that, I think, if I could do anything in my life once, I would definitely want to do something like that.
Yeah, and this game was a Saturday night, but in that midweek, we played at Orlando City in probably the most forgettable game of the season. It was a 0-0 draw at Exploria, or I guess Inter and Co Stadium in Orlando. And then we come into this game, and it had been 180 minutes since Inter Miami had put the ball in the back of the net. We weren't creating a ton of chances. We didn't look particularly dangerous. And then all of a sudden, Busquets with the ball over the top, Campana brings it down and puts it in. I think this was the first magic moment of the season. A lot of these game winners that were that are coming up, a lot of the moments we've already talked about, happened later on in the season. But this was just a moment of pure magic, and that's sort of what you need if you want to go on to break the points record. If you want to win the league, if you want to win the Supporters Shield, you have to have a few moments of true magic, and that's what this was, courtesy of the Magic Man, Leo Campana.
Yeah, Ash in the chat wants me to switch off the game every time Inter Miami's playing poorly in the next season so that Leo Campana can score another screamer in the last minute. I'll try my best, Ash. I don't know how many times that's going to work, but you know what? Let's try and see if it actually works the next few times. And if it does, I promise I won't watch the last few minutes of a game when we're losing or drawing.
Yeah, but as far as like magic moments, we'll get to a few more here. That was only number 4, but this felt like something special. Like, okay, maybe this team does have something about it, you know?
Beyond comprehensible, because these moments you don't see them often. And yes, we're literally doing 10 magic moments of the season that won us the points, but that's because this team was special this season. And I feel like a lot of people, because of us underachieving, not getting the results that we wanted, sort of undervalue that. But this season had so many good moments, and I think if you want to make a poster or an advertisement for what this season was, that was it, right? A player that few people expect to actually contribute on the score sheet, even though he is our second striker. Not many people expect him to change the game so, such active performance in a game. And he does that with the first kick of the ball that he has after coming off the bench. It's special because, Campana is our boy. It's special because it's the last minute of the game. It's special because it's against DC United, who played really awful football to watch because they just sat back and frustrated us all game. And then it was a moment of euphoria, and that just defines the season. There were moments of euphoria time and time again when we were in adversity, and that was just a personification of that.
I also think two other things. DC United missed the playoffs because they lost out a tiebreaker on points, goal differential, points. Yeah. If they had gotten that draw, they would have made the playoffs. And also, I think this was the first big moment from Campana this year, where by the end, it was clear that Tata trusted him, put him on with Suarez, wanted to get him more minutes on the pitch, help him, or at least have him have the opportunity to make an impact in games. I'm trying to think about the early portion of the season, and it felt a lot like Suarez was going 90. Campana would come on in the 88th minute, 91st minute. Even this game, he comes on in the 92nd minute. But he delivers, and it's the first time I think Tata Martino said, okay, this guy has something too. We should be putting this guy on the field more in these types of situations, give him more game time. We were coming up towards that period where Suarez was going to be on international duty. And so Campana, confidence, trust from the coach, all of those things, and this was a big part of that.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Leo Campana, number 3.
Suarez.
Oh, wow.
Lovely ball, Campana!
October 5th, 2024, Inter Miami on the road at Toronto, a dull game. We play our second team. A lot of our starters aren't in this game, but we needed 3 points in order to break the points record. It was sort of a cold game. The field wasn't great. And it was really tough for Inter Miami to get going. But ultimately, in the end, Suarez with the ball into Leo Campana, who pounds it home for his second game winner at the death this season. Magic moment.
Didn't we put out a slightly changed lineup, and it was not as, or did we go with the full line? Yeah, right.
No, it was Ustadi and Kramaski and David Ruiz.
It was a completely changed lineup.
I think we had one
emphatic. Not as emphatic as the first Leo Campana goal. Not as spectacular as the first Leo Campana goal. Probably 10 times more important than the first Leo Campana goal, because I had resigned myself to it by this time. I was like, okay, yeah, we won the Supporters Shield, but I don't think we're going to win the points record. It's all right. We fell a little bit short at the last hurdle. It happens. And I'd almost convinced myself that, you know what? Yeah, it's okay. We don't need that points record. It's not that important. And then that goal went in. I was like, yes, we got that points record. We needed this. It was beautiful. Credit to Suarez. Moved out to the left side when Campana came in and actually, sacrificed his natural position to play a little bit on the left side. Campana, again, proving exactly why he can be actually dependable as a striker, because he comes in clutch with a lot of good moments. Positions himself really well in between the space of two defenders, controls it beautifully with his foot, and then buries it in the corner. Well taken goal, really well constructed by the team or by the two strikers. It was also a little bit of a validation for playing Campana and Suarez together on the pitch, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, me too.
And then what can I say, man? This is what won us the points record. So there's nothing more you can say to this. Well, actually, the New Revolution game won us the points record.
No, but without this, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
I think that's why we decided this one was 3 and the one versus DC was 4. This one came second to last game of the season. We knew we needed to get 6 points if we were going to break the points record. The guys had talked about it a little bit in interviews in the month before this. They had mentioned they're not focused on it, but they know it's there. I think Gressel had a comment about it. So they knew this was available to them. They knew they had to win out if they wanted to get it. They didn't have a great game. Even some of the, Diego Gomez came on, and Messi and Suarez, they came on and they didn't have that sort of instant impact that you would have wanted that just created numerous chances. But they ultimately only need that one magic moment. That's what makes these players special. And Suarez provided that to Campana, and Campana did not miss a game-winning goal, 3 points for Inter Miami, because Leo Campana was in the right spot, had the right technique, and had the composure, and was calm enough to blast it home. Inter Miami gets 3 points and eventually the points record.
Yeah, and just goes to show that all it takes is a split second to go from absolute dullness to euphoria. And again, one of those moments where you're like, this game was terrible for 90 minutes, and in that 91st minute, we created magic. So I'm glad Campana had a couple of really good moments this season, because he's had his fair critics as well.
Yeah, he has. And no one had more special moments than Leo Campana, right? I know Messi had some big ones. Matias Rojas had some big ones. But as far as points-winning moments, it was Leo Campana, right? Okay, number 2. And this one was contentious. Before we get to these final 2, let's just say we talked about the moment of the year a couple weeks ago in our awards show. We talked about it earlier this week. Which one should be number 1? Which one should be number 2? Are these next to the clear top 2 for you for this season?
Potentially. I don't think anything else stands out as much as these two, just because there was a lot relying on these two games. And okay, I'm not going to spoil anything, but these were moments that you didn't expect to happen at all, right? Yes, some of the other moments were absolutely magical, and you're like, wow, this is brilliantly done. But then these two moments were, okay, you don't expect these players to step up when they do, and it's just, I don't want to spoil anything. Play the clip, man. Get into it as soon as we can.
Number 2, and this was my executive decision to order these in this order. So if you disagree, you can blame me for that in the comments. Number 2.
Cucho to tie the game. Saved by Callender! Drake Callender, a moment that could have just won Miami the Shield tonight.
And won Miami the Shield. It did. Drake Callender with a penalty save on Cucho Hernandez, October 2nd, third to last game of the season. With that save, Inter Miami wins that game 3-2 and wins the Supporters Shield in Columbus. What a way to do it, with a magic moment from a magic player. Inter Miami wins the Supporters Shield because Drake Callender comes up big where no one's going to help him. It's him versus the guy who came in second for the MVP, and he steps up and he makes the save. Inter Miami wins 3-2 in a game of the year type atmosphere.
Goalkeeper is one of the most scrutinized positions in world football. And someone said that it's not how many good things you do as a goalkeeper that people remember. It's those bad moments that you have as a goalkeeper that people remember. And that's very true. And Drake Callender pulled off a moment that I think everyone's going to remember as Inter Miami fans when we talk about this season. Didn't they already have a penalty in this game?
They did.
Cucho Hernandez scored.
Mm-hmm.
This was his second penalty. Drake Callender has already been beaten once. Mentally, he's like, dude, this guy has my number. What do I do? I go out and save that goal because that's what Drake Callender does. That's what Captain Callender does. Phenomenal. Again, I didn't expect it at all. I didn't think he would be able to save the goal. He's a good penalty stopper. He's proven that in the Leagues Cup last year. But this season, it just felt like it wasn't falling into place for us. And this was when Columbus was rampant, getting back into it. And you're like, oof, we had a good lead and we're going to let it slip right between our fingers. But no, Drake Callender steps up and proves to the world that, you know what, he can make a difference when it matters. Beautiful, beautiful moment for all Inter Miami fans and for Drake Callender.
Yeah, and to add some context to this game, Inter Miami a month earlier, played at Columbus in the Leagues Cup, got a 2-0 lead, and then Columbus stormed right back, killed all the momentum Miami had, and won that game 3-2 to eliminate Miami from the Leagues Cup. And so that was fresh in our minds when Inter Miami goes up a couple goals early. They get, I believe, a 2-0 lead and then a 3-1 lead. And then all of a sudden, sort of an unlucky penalty on Ian Frey in the box. It's an unlucky handball, and Cucho Hernandez scores. It's 3-2. And then another unlucky handball on Noah Allen. I think Noah Allen's might have been first, actually. But either way, two very unlucky handballs that are not on shots. They don't affect the play, but it is a hand on a ball in the box. And so Cucho Hernandez steps up twice to try and tie the game. The first time he scores and it's 3-2 and Columbus has all the momentum. The second time, with that momentum, he has the opportunity to take the game by the scruff of the neck, as you would like to say. Steps up to the line, and Drake Callender says, "Not so fast, my friend." Inter Miami wins that game 3-2, and then that's the game that clinched the Supporter Shield. So then we got to celebrate winning the Supporter Shield in Columbus. This team that Inter Miami had rivaled with all season, that Inter Miami fans and Columbus fans had bouted with all season. Inter Miami went to their place and won a trophy, and they did it in Magic style. Messi had a great game. I believe Suarez had an important goal early in that second half. Columbus had a red card. We had a couple unfortunate handballs in the box, but ultimately Inter Miami wins 3-2, and that's because Captain Drake saves the game in the final moments.
Probably your favorite game of the season, I would say. I think
Game of the year.
Game of the year, in terms of the quality, in terms of what it mattered for the both teams, and both teams put on a great show. I think Columbus played really well, and we, of course, stepped up our game when it mattered the most. The 2 goals we actually conceded were very unlucky on our part. We came away with the victory. I think deserved victory as well. It was a difficult game against a really good opposition, and we came out on top and secured that Supporter Shield. Beautiful way to finish off a good league season.
Yeah, and at that point, we are riding the highest we could. I mean, the atmosphere for that game, credit to Columbus fans, the atmosphere was incredible. And then Columbus brought it, but Inter Miami really brought it. And that game gave me confidence that we were going to go into the playoffs and have this energy. We were just going to know what we had to do in the moment. And so that was the highest moment. We've been in that
situation before, right? We'd been in a situation where Columbus was threatening to come back, and they came back and they won the last game.
Exactly.
And you're like, we are in a position where we are going to let it slip away again. The momentum is with them. If this goes in, that's it. It's going to really deflate the entire team. But credit to Drake Callender, kept his cool, kept his calm, and produced a moment of brilliance between the sticks.
Yeah, and the word of the day in Inter Miami's world today is fortaleza, is fortitude. That's exactly what Inter Miami showed. That, to me, was the best moment of the season from a pure ecstatic point of view, and it was the game of the season from a team importance and atmosphere and energy type of lens. But there was one more ridiculous moment, and it was against all odds, and it is our number one most important moment that helped Inter Miami break the points record. Number one.
If they hurry here, this is Afonso with an exhausted Kamaski making a run. Afonso! Go! Are you kidding?
94th minute, down to 9 men. Inter Miami holding on for dear life, and yet they have a steal from Yannick Bright. He puts the ball forward to Leo Afonso. Leo Afonso carries it. Kramaski's trying to get into position for a tap in, but he is exhausted, completely out of energy. So Leo Afonso says, "I got this." And he called game, puts it past the keeper. Inter Miami wins 2-1 on the road at Philadelphia, despite already losing David Ruiz and Toto Aviles in this game to red cards. 9 men, no problem. Inter Miami wins 2-1. And those 3 points against all odds are what helped Inter Miami win the points record. Break the points record.
We were playing so well at this point in time that we were like, okay, let's create more obstacles for us. Losing Messi isn't enough. First game without Messi isn't enough. Let's go down to 9 men and see how we can challenge ourselves. Shut our haters up. Silence every critic that's been talking about Inter Miami not being a team without Messi. Up steps up Yannick Bright, first 4. We didn't show him in this clip because it was a way back, but he drove that ball into the corner, and I thought to myself, and he's dissected this clip with us, and I thought to myself, oh, he's put himself into a difficult corner. I don't think he can get out of here. He just passes it. For some reason, the way he passes it falls straight in the path of Leo Afonso, who for me had a world's work to do on this, by the way. He had way too much time on his hands, and even the most experienced players with that much time in front of goal can sometimes fluff their lines. And he didn't. He kept his cool, and a great finish to cap off a game where we created our own problems. This was the moment that started off Inter Miami's season for me. Lost Lionel Messi, first game without him. This is basically going to determine how the remainder of the season goes, because if you don't start getting points against lower teams now, when your best player is not there, you're probably not going to end up in the playoffs, or you're probably going to end up suffering fighting for the playoffs.
Certainly not the Supporters' Shield.
Exactly. And there we were, absolutely brilliant performance, first of all, by the 9 men who were on that pitch, because they defended their lives out there. And then to get out and actually get that counterattack going and finish it off with aplomb was exactly what Leo Afonso did. And such an inexperienced young player as well, getting that result for us. What more can we ask for?
No, 2 super draft picks from this past year, neither of whom were signed at the beginning of the season. Both of these players were only signed to first-team contracts like a month before this, because we were down a few guys on international duty. Like, these guys weren't the plan coming in, and yet they are single-handedly winning, two-handed winning the 3 points for Inter Miami on the road. Like you mentioned, this is the first game without Messi, but even more than that, the previous 2 games, as I mentioned earlier, home games, lost to Atlanta, draw versus St. Louis City. Inter Miami could have really fallen off here. They didn't end the portion with Messi well, and all of a sudden you don't have Messi, you don't have Suarez, the 2 guys that had been driving your team forward this season. Both of them are at the Copa America, and you have to go on the road at Philadelphia, who at the time was still sort of a playoff team and a team that had done great things over the last couple of years. We go down in the first 3 minutes of this game. Uwe scores a goal early. And so it's bad vibes. I think Julian Gressel scored right at the beginning of the second half. That was his only goal of the season, so that was a good feeling for him. But David Ruiz goes down. Toto Aviles comes down. I'm sorry, they go out because of a red card. And we are defending for our lives. Philadelphia knows they're having a tough season so far. They need 3 points. When the other team goes down to 9 men, you have to win 3 points. And they are all out going for it. They left themselves a little bit exposed, and Leo Afonso took advantage. Moment of the season, most ridiculous moment for probably any team all season, to go down to 9 men and pull out a game winner in the 94th minute. It was incredible. I think in terms of pure jubilation for 30 seconds, that may have been the highest point I was all season, because it was so unexpected. And again, 2 of the players that are far down the depth chart, far down the list of most important players at the time, guys that you wouldn't have expected to win you points. Those are the guys that are coming through, set the stage for the rest of the summer with Ian Frey and Julian Gressel and Kremaski and all these other guys stepping up. That all started with Leo Afonso and Yannick Bright. So moment of the season in terms of helping Miami get to 74 points, 3 points that we had no business getting, and yet we had the magic to get it done. Unbelievable.
Coming of age for a team without Lionel Messi. And I think this was the moment we were waiting for, to see what fortitude this team has without our star players. and how much depth this team actually has. We saw on paper, it looked like we were a really deep team, very talented, but it just wasn't translating into practice. This is when it all came together. We created our own problems, we solved our own problems, and we performed, man. We performed as a team that day, and I was really proud of the boys, and them getting that result was absolutely crucial for the rest of the season for me.
Did you have fun talking about those moments?
I'm really surprised how quickly this went, because I thought it would take us more time. It's taken us exactly how much time it would normally take us. We're almost to an hour, but I thought it would feel much longer, and I can keep talking about this for the rest of the day, because it's just so fun reminiscing on some really good moments this season. I think there were a lot of them if you look back at it. Not many teams get to say that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of moments that we talked about potentially putting on this list. That final game against the New England Revolution, we're down 2-0, and Suarez helps us get back. We end up scoring 6 goals. There was some really positive moments in this game. Redondo single-handedly took over a game earlier this season. There was a couple moments in the Leagues Cup and CONCACAF Champions Cup that weren't eligible for this, but that were incredibly fun moments. Even early on, beating Orlando City 5-0, that first Suarez goal kicked that off. That was a lot of fun. And then the RSL game to start the season, we looked really good in that game. So there was a lot of moments that could have been on this list, but these 10 were unbelievably exciting, unbelievably fun, and I think made this season incredibly worthwhile. Saur, let's talk overall for these last couple minutes about the 2024 season, because this is the last podcast we have scheduled to reminisce about this past season. Of course, we'll talk about it in the context of other things going on, how the offseason's unfolding, what we want to do for next year, how next year compares to this year, etc. But as far as podcasts dedicated to the 2024 season, this is it. And so as a celebratory moment, you had fun. It was a lot of fun, I thought.
Yeah. Listen, it's very easy to dwell on the negatives and to think about what could have been and what could not have been and all of that, right? Be jealous of LA Galaxy for winning the MLS Cup. Basically complain about how we didn't perform up to our standards as a team, didn't win the Leagues Cup, didn't win the CONCACAF Cup. That's all part and parcel of being a football fan, right? Your team can't always perform to the expectations, and that's understandable. But I think as fans, we sometimes lose sight of how important it is to just enjoy the moments, man. You don't know when this is going to come back. Up until not very recently, we were in the absolute trenches, struggling to get even good moments as fans of Inter Miami as a club, right? And now here we are. We can at least name 10 moments that actually made us smile, made us feel good, and made our days better. It was a good season. We enjoyed the season. There were some very good moments. There were some good players coming up. There were moments that we thought we would never experience with some of our youngsters performing at the level that they did. And overall, I think there's a lot to take away from it. So why not think about the positives and enjoy reminiscing in some of these moments than complain about what could have been. So for me, I think if I had to rate the season, I would give it a solid 7 with an asterisk on top saying very exciting moments throughout the season.
Yeah, and to that point, 28 out of 29 teams this year are feeling disappointed at the end. And congratulations to the Galaxy. You get to be excited all offseason. But the other 28 teams finished on a sad note, but very few of those get to look back and have these types of memories. So for those reasons, I'm very grateful, and I had a lot of fun. The other part of this is 10 moments, 10 different key contributors to those moments. Leo Afonso, Yannick Bright, Drake Callender, Leo Campana, Julian Gressel, Benjamin Kramaski, of course, Lionel Messi, but Ian Frey, Matias Rojas, huge contributions to not just winning games, but to breaking the points record. And that's what this was all about. So I had a lot of fun remembering all of these, reminiscing, making this list, and I hope you guys had fun sharing it with us. Other than that, Saur, any final words?
No, I think this is the wrap up for the 2024 season. Now, everything we talk about is going to be about the future. There's a lot to look forward to, guys. The transfer window is coming up thick and fast. There's going to be big decisions coming in. Rumor mill is going to be absolutely running riot. And that's what we as fans love most, right? Transfer window, transfer activity. Super Draft's going to be coming up soon as well. It'll be really interesting to see what Inter Miami as a club does in this off season, what they do in the transfer window, and how we prepare ourselves going into the next season, because this was just the trailer. I believe 2025 is going to be even bigger and even better than what we had in store. So hopefully you guys can ride the wave of positivity with us and take it into the next season.
Guys, I know that CJ Dos Santos got traded yesterday to San Diego. The new kit came out today. There's a lot of things happening, but we really wanted to focus this episode on the 2024 season. So we will talk about all that stuff next episode. We will see you guys then. But until then, thank you for being with us. Saur, thank you for being with me. And guys, we will see you next time. Have a wonderful night. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.